Good morning and welcome back to Law and Crime. It looks like they are going into a sidebar right now inside the courtroom. We have a new guest with us, Michelle Heyman-Cantor, a former prosecutor. Thanks for joining us today. Michelle, you just got into the hot seat. Let me ask you so far, what do you think of this witness?
I think he is so credible. I think he is airing all of his skeletons right out there for the jury to see. And I think they're going to end up believing him. I think they're going to like what he has to say. He's open about his mistakes. He's open about his crimes. He's open about the things that he's done in his life. And I think they're going to like that.
And do you think that he's being effective for the state here in kind of discrediting the defense?
I do. I think that the questions that they're asking him, I think that he's being able to tell the jury exactly what went down on the day of the shooting and what went down in preparation for it. And I think that he is being very effective for them.
All right. And Segal, you mentioned that this judge might not like the attorney right now. Why is that, or why did you say that?
Well, he seems to be a little short with him and getting a little bit tired and impatient with his questions. You could tell that when he doesn't get the answer that he wants from Rivera, he'll try to ask it 3 different ways or ask it again over and over again. And the judge is just like, move on. He didn't give you the answer you wanted. That's fine, but you can't just keep asking him the same question.
Right. And one of the things that's really incredible about this is that none of the Adelsons have been indicted or charged with anything here. And I know that some of the speculation is that that might come after this trial wraps. But why is that? And what do you think they're trying to do with that, Segal?
Well, I think that if these two get convicted at this trial, then they may have a better chance to get them to enter into some sort of an agreement for a reduced sentence. Obviously, they don't have the Adelsons, probably because neither Garcia or Magbanua said anything to implicate them. They clearly don't have enough probable cause to have indicted them, and they don't have enough evidence, which is why they're not defendants at this trial. So I think they're really hanging their hats here on these two defendants, and really the star witness and the entire case is centered on Rivera and how credible he is, and whether they're going to be able to destroy him completely as a witness to the point where they're just going to discount everything that he says.
Right. Michelle, do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. I think that this entire trial is so that they can flip these two if they get a conviction, and that's the way they're going to end up bringing the Adelsons down. Because right now, clearly the case against the Adelsons is circumstantial, which means they don't have enough evidence, as Segal mentioned. But I think if these two are convicted, if Magbanua and Sigfredo Garcia are convicted, that's the first thing that's going to happen, is that they're going to offer them a deal to flip on them.
All right, so guilty for Amber Geiger. This happened after a total of 5 hours of deliberation. The jury began this over 2 days, so it was 2 hours and 3 hours, I believe, split between the 2 days. She's now facing 5 years up to life. We want to talk about this with our guests because this verdict was very shocking to many. And afterwards, we heard from activists, from family members, from everyone as a press conference happened in that Dallas courthouse. Segal Blakeman, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to the verdict?
You know what? I was surprised, but on the other hand, I was not. And it was kind of predictable when she went on the stand and she repeatedly said that she intended to shoot him and that her intent was to shoot to kill, because again, her defense, don't forget that she was justified because it was self-defense and she thought she was in her own apartment and that he was an intruder. I honestly felt that that gave her no wiggle room. Even though the the jury instructions gave them the option of both murder and manslaughter, I don't think they were even able to consider that in lieu of her testimony, because manslaughter, you have to show recklessness, that she was reckless. She specifically testified that she intended to shoot him, and that was her intent. So I think in a way that backfired against her. So now she's stuck with the murder charge.
Yeah, I agree with that. And do you think, Michelle, that her taking the stand kind of sealed the deal there for that? A lot of people said that that hurt her a lot.
I think she had no choice. She had to take the stand. She had to come out and tell the jury her story. I think she was credible. I think she did garner probably a little bit of sympathy. But as Segal said, I think the nail in her coffin was that she said, I intentionally meant to shoot him. And there is no way around that because that's the charge. That's the murder charge. I intended to shoot this man. but I don't think she had any other choice but to take the stand in her own defense.
All right, thank you. Afterwards, when the verdict came out, the Jean family attorneys spoke. So very powerful thoughts from the Jean family attorneys there. One of the things we didn't hear about during the actual trial was this topic of race. It did not really predominantly have any mention in the trial at all. But outside the courtroom, Jean's case became a big point nationally. It was part of a big national conversation on this. And it also gave us some context into the policing and the threat of violence that people of color may face in their daily life. Sigal, what do you think this means for police force going forward? And as you said, or as we just heard him say, one of the attorneys, this is a precedent. Do you agree with that?
In many respects, it is. I mean, there have been other cases. I mean, lately, in the last few years, police officers are much more aware of, you know, not being able to pull the trigger or to be aggressive. They're much more resistant to following up with physical, you know, or deadly force. And I think that this case just put the nail in it. In other words, you know, now police officers are going to have to be very conscious of what they're doing, and they're going to have to think twice before they raise their gun. And in many respects, it could hamper their work. I mean, in this case, it was clearly not justified, and she overreacted. Maybe she panicked, you know. But in many cases where it may be justified, I think it may have a chilling effect on these police officers who may be now resistant to applying deadly force, and they could be risking their own lives. So it's unfortunate.
And going off that, one of the things that the attorney said was, this is for Trayvon Martin, this is for this is for that. He named a lot of those high-profile cases that you mentioned that have just been in this national dialogue of this overarching theme of police brutality. Michelle, do you think that, you know, since we've had a lot of these unfold, police now have to wear body cameras, there's recording devices, there's all these nuanced things because of these actions. How does that play into this?
So I've been a prosecutor for over 10 years, and recently we have seen the use of body cameras come into play in hearings, in trials, and I think it can work to police officers' benefits as well as the rest of society, because you actually see what is happening at the moment a crime is committed. And so you don't even just have to rest on someone's word. You actually see the video that's transpiring. And I think that's beneficial for both sides. So I do think these cases have had an impact and that people are listening.
And within, hopefully, the hour here, the sentencing phase will continue today. We know Geiger's expected or facing 5 to 99 years or life. What can we expect with the sentencing that's going to start later? How does that phase begin? Walk us through that.
So in the sentencing phase here, the jury is going to hear from defense is going to present their mitigation. They're going to probably be able to talk about the service she's done in the police force and the good things she's done in her life. And that will be countered by what the prosecution is showing and what we've already seen, like her social media. So they're going to balance what they call aggravating factors with mitigating factors. And then they will come up with a number that they think she deserves for prison.
And we'll have to see how long that takes, because yesterday people were surprised that the sentencing phase went all day, and then now will continue this morning. So speaking of time, Sigal, were you surprised how quickly the jury came to their verdict yesterday?
I kind of was surprised. I mean, 5 hours. But in light of the fact that they specifically asked for clarification on the Castle Doctrine and on manslaughter, and I really believe that they struggled with their ultimate verdict, and they probably tried to fit her into that manslaughter box. But like I said, in light of her testimony, I don't think she'd allow them to do that. And at least as an American who believes in the jury system, it makes me feel good about the fact that they clearly wanted to see whether these two other doctrines would be applicable to her so that they wouldn't have to hit her with the murder. And I honestly feel they didn't really have a choice given her testimony. She was right, like she said it straight on, that she intended to kill him, she intended to shoot him, and she said it more than once. So I think she boxed herself in.
and talking about the castle doctrine. That was a hot button topic in this. Michelle, do you think the judge made the right decision in allowing it in?
I think so. I think she was giving the defendant the benefits that I think the judge felt like she deserved at the trial, and that this was part of their defense. And so she allowed that to go forward to the jury. And so in doing so, they were allowed to consider the castle doctrine and the fact that the mistake of fact that she believed it was her own apartment. But she did lock herself in with her own testimony.
And if you don't mind, in layman's terms, just quickly explain the castle doctrine for those of us who are maybe unaware of exactly what it means.
That you're allowed, that your home is your castle, that you are allowed to protect your castle, your home, if you perceive the threat to be one where you could be killed or in serious physical danger.
Michelle Segal, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break right now on Law and Crime. When we come back, we'll be following the new sentencing phase of Amber Guyger's trial. Stay with us.